At his wife's grave, he noticed a woman sobbing by a tiny grave. Something felt eerily wrong. He asked, "Why are you crying?" She looked up, eyes filled with pain. "I lost my baby, the same moment you lost your wife." His heart pounded. This was no coincidence. "Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Before we begin, let's take a moment to pray together. Dear Lord, bless my beautiful family watching this right now. Let their hearts be filled with love, their souls with peace, and their homes with joy. Lift their burdens, answer their silent prayers, and remind them they are never alone. Strengthen them in their struggles, surprise them with unexpected blessings, and let every tear of pain be replaced with tears of joy. May they always walk in the light of love, faith, and endless possibilities. Amen. My beautiful family, let's stand together and make a promise. We will rise again. This channel is our home, our family, and our voice. Our next goal is 20,000 subscribers, and we are just 3,000 away with 10 days left in March. I believe in you, in us, in the power of this beautiful family. Promise me, you will like this video, subscribe, and share this channel with at least 3 friends. Together, we will achieve this and beyond. This story will be read by James Peter, but the next one will be done by me. Now, my beautiful family, let's make our presence known. Comment below. We are Mr. Peter. Let the world see our strength, our unity, and our unstoppable love. Let's proceed with love.
Thanks, Mr. Peter, for giving me so much respect, and thanks for introducing me to this beautiful family. This story will be even more powerful, so watch until the end. Don't leave in the middle. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The beginning of the end. Callista Michaels stands before the mirror, radiant in her wedding gown, 18 and glowing with hope. The white lace contrasts beautifully against her dark skin, and the delicate beading catches the light with every breath she takes. Behind her, her mother fusses with the veil, tears glistening in her eyes. "You look like an angel," her mother whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Callista smiles, her heart pounding with anticipation. In less than an hour, she will be Mrs. James Taylor. The thought sends a thrill through her body. They've been in love since sophomore year of high school, inseparable through graduation and beyond. When he proposed on her 18th birthday, she didn't hesitate. Some might say they're too young, but Callista knows with bone-deep certainty that James is her forever. The ceremony is everything she dreamed of. James standing tall at the altar, his eyes filling with tears as she walks toward him on her father's arm. When they exchange vows, his voice never wavers. "I promise to love you through every storm," James says, sliding the ring onto her finger. "Through every battle, through every tear, and through every joy. You are my beginning and my end, Callista. My heart recognized yours the moment we met." She can barely speak through her tears of joy, but she manages to recite her vows, promising him forever. As they share their first kiss as husband and wife, she feels invincible, blessed, complete. 6 months later, Callista sits beside a hospital bed, the antiseptic smell burning her nostrils as she holds James's hand. The machines beep in a rhythm she's grown to hate, each sound marking the passing of precious time. His body, once strong and vibrant, now lies withered, his brown skin sallow against the sterile white sheets. The cancer had come suddenly and viciously. What began as persistent headaches quickly revealed itself as an aggressive brain tumor. The doctors had been brutally honest from the beginning. His chances were minimal. Still, they fought. Through surgeries, through radiation, through experimental treatments that left him vomiting and weak. Through it all, Callista never left his side. "You need to eat something," the nurse says gently, touching Callista's shoulder. "Think of the baby." Callista places her free hand on her swollen belly, feeling the flutter of movement within. Their miracle. Conceived just weeks before James's diagnosis, The baby represents both their greatest joy and her deepest fear, that James will never meet their child. "I'm not hungry," she responds, her eyes never leaving James's face. When the nurse leaves, James's eyes flutter open. He's been drifting in and out of consciousness all day, the medication making him foggy. But now his gaze is clear, focused entirely on her face. "My beautiful wife," he whispers, his voice barely audible. "I'm here," Callista says, leaning closer. "I'm right here, my love." His fingers tighten weakly around hers. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll find happiness again." The words cut through her like glass. "James, don't—" "Promise me," he insists, his eyes fierce despite his failing body. "Promise me you won't close your heart after I'm gone. Our baby will need you to be whole." "How can I promise that?" Callista's tears fall onto their intertwined hands. "You are my happiness." "No," he whispers. "I'm your first love, not your only love. There's a difference." He struggles to lift his hand to her cheek. "You have so much love to give, Callista. Don't bury it with me." Before she can respond, his body stiffens, his eyes widening in alarm. The machines around them begin to shriek as his hand goes limp in hers. Doctors and nurses flood the room, pushing her aside as they work desperately to save him. But Callista knows, she feels it in the sudden hollow space in her chest, that James is gone. 2 weeks later, she stands at his grave, numb to the condolences and embraces of well-meaning friends and family. The reality of widowhood at 18 is surreal, incomprehensible. Her hand rests protectively over her belly, over the life that is all she has left of James. "We'll be okay," she whispers to her unborn child as the last of the mourners depart. "We have to be." But fate isn't finished with her yet. 4 months later, Callista lies in a hospital bed, the world around her a haze of pain and desperate voices. Something is wrong. The baby is in distress. She feels herself drifting, floating above the chaos as doctors rush around her. Blood pressure dropping. "We need to perform an emergency C-section. Stay with us, Callista." She tries to focus, tries to fight through the fog, thinking only of her baby, James's baby. She needs to stay conscious, needs to be strong for their child. But the darkness is pulling her under. When she wakes hours later, the emptiness in her womb is matched by the emptiness in her heart. The doctor's face tells her everything before he even speaks. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Taylor. We did everything we could to save your son." The words don't make sense at first. Her son, a boy, the son James would never see, the son she would never hold. "What happened?" she asks, her voice a hollow echo in the sterile room. "The umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. By the time we got him out, he had been without oxygen for too long. His heart never started beating on its own." Callista feels nothing, says nothing. She has died twice now, once when James took his last breath, and again in this moment. What remains is just a shell, breathing out of habit rather than desire. 2 days later, they release her from the hospital. Her mother tries to convince her to come home, but Callista refuses. She returns to the small house she and James had purchased with such hope, such dreams. She moves through the rooms like a ghost, touching the nursery furniture they had assembled together, running her fingers over tiny clothes that will never be worn. That night, she curls into a ball on their bed, clutching James's pillow to her chest, inhaling the fading scent of him. The pain is physical, tearing through her body with each breath. She doesn't cry. She's beyond tears. Instead, she stares at the wall, watching the moonlight create patterns on the paint, wondering how the world can continue turning when everything that mattered is gone. "You promised," she whispers into the darkness, remembering James's final request. "You made me promise to find happiness again." The silence that answers is deafening. "How?" she asks the empty room. How do I keep that promise now? The answer doesn't come that night or the next or for many nights after. But deep within the shattered pieces of her heart, a tiny ember of resilience refuses to be extinguished. She is alive despite everything. And somewhere in that simple fact lies the beginning of a path forward, though she cannot yet see it through the dense fog of her grief. Chapter 2. Empty arms. Timothy Payne stands motionless in the rain, watching as they lower Sophia's casket into the ground. The expensive suit he wears is soaked through, but he doesn't feel the cold. He doesn't feel anything. A blessing, perhaps, considering the alternative. Around him, faces blur into a sea of black umbrellas and murmured platitudes. None of it matters. The only voice he wants to hear is forever silenced. Behind him, a nurse holds his newborn son, sheltered beneath a large umbrella. The child's cries pierce through the somber atmosphere, cutting into Timothy's consciousness like a physical wound. 3 days old, and already the boy has experienced the cruelest lesson life has to offer, that love is no shield against loss. Sophia had been radiant throughout her pregnancy, her body blossoming with their child, her hazel eyes sparkling with anticipation. They had spent months preparing the nursery, selecting the perfect shade of blue for the walls, assembling furniture, folding tiny clothes into the dresser. Timothy had watched in awe as his wife transformed, becoming more beautiful, more vibrant with each passing day. "Just think, Timothy," she had said, guiding his hand to feel the movement within her womb. "Soon we'll be a family." Family. The word echoes hollowly in his mind now as rain drips from his hair into his eyes, mingling with the tears he refuses to shed in public. His family, the one they had dreamed of, planned for, created together, lasted less than 3 hours. Sophia had hemorrhaged. One moment she was holding their son, tears of joy streaming down her face. The next she was pale, her lips forming words that made no sound, her hand slipping from his grasp. The doctors had worked frantically, but the blood loss was too severe, too rapid. "Mr. Payne," a voice intrudes upon his thoughts. His lawyer, Richard, stands beside him, concern etched on his face. "The service is over," Richard says gently, "and the nurse needs to know what to do with your son." Timothy turns, his face expressionless, to look at the small bundle in the nurse's arms. The child, Theodore, as Sophia had insisted they name him, has fallen silent, his tiny face red from crying, his eyes squeezed shut against the brightness of the world. "Take him home," Timothy says, his voice mechanical. "Hire someone to care for him." Richard's brow furrows. "Sir, with all due respect, he needs more than just care right now. He needs his father." Timothy stares at the tiny bundle, unable to bridge the vast chasm between them. How can he be what this child needs when he himself is broken beyond repair? How can he look into the face that cost Sophia her life and not feel the twin serpents of grief and resentment coiling around his heart? "What does he need that I can possibly give?" he asks, bitterness seeping into his tone. "I couldn't even protect his mother." Richard opens his mouth to respond, but Timothy has already turned away, moving back toward Sophia's gravesite. The rain falls harder now, drumming against the canvas of umbrellas, washing away the fresh-turned earth at his feet. He stands there long after the last mourner has departed, long after propriety would dictate he leave. Only when the cemetery workers begin to approach, their faces sympathetic but impatient, does he finally turn away. As he walks through the winding paths toward the exit, something catches his eye, a splash of vivid red against the monochrome landscape. A young woman kneels before a small headstone, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Beside her is a fresh mound of earth, so small it could only be for a child. There's something about her grief, so raw and mirroring his own, that pulls him across the wet grass toward her. Thunder rumbles in the distance as he approaches, hesitant and unsure why he's drawn to this stranger. She doesn't notice him at first, lost in her sorrow. Her dark hair hangs in wet tendrils around her face, her clothes soaked through from the rain she seems oblivious to. "Why are you crying?" The words leave his mouth before he can consider their absurdity. Of course she's crying. She's in a cemetery, kneeling before a grave. She looks up, startled by his voice. Her face, streaked with tears and rain, is beautiful in its devastation. For a moment they simply stare at each other, two ships wrecked on the same treacherous shore. "I buried my husband 6 months ago," she says finally, her voice hoarse from crying. "Today, I buried my son." Her gaze drops to the tiny grave. He never even took a breath. Timothy feels something crack in the ice encasing his heart. He gestures vaguely toward where Sophia's funeral has concluded. "My wife died giving birth to our son 3 days ago." For a long moment they are silent, two strangers united by losses too profound for words. The rain continues to fall, but neither moves to seek shelter. The silence is broken by the distant wailing of a baby. His son, he realizes. The nurse must be taking Theodore to the car. "He won't stop crying," Timothy says, his composure finally breaking. "He cries for his mother, for her milk, and I can't. I don't know what to do." The admission costs him, each word scraping his throat raw. The young woman looks at him, really looks at him, her eyes clearing slightly as she focuses on something beyond her own pain. "Take me to him," she says, rising to her feet with a grace that belies her grief. "What?" Timothy is caught off guard by her response. "Your son," she says simply. "Take me to him." Without waiting for his answer, she begins walking toward the sound of the crying baby. Timothy follows, bewildered by this unexpected turn of events. They reach the black town car where the nurse stands beside the open door, bouncing Theodore gently, her face strained with concern. The woman approaches without hesitation, holding out her arms. "May I?" The nurse looks to Timothy, who gives a slight nod, too exhausted to question this strange encounter. The moment she cradles Theodore against her chest, the baby's cries begin to soften. She murmurs to him, gentle words Timothy can't quite catch, and within seconds Theodore is quiet, his tiny fingers curling around one of hers. "He knows," the nurse whispers, awe in her voice. "Babies always know a mother's heart." Timothy watches, transfixed, as this woman, this stranger who shares his grief, soothes his son in a way no one else has been able to. In this moment, amidst the rain and sorrow, a sliver of light breaks through the darkness that has enveloped him since Sophia's death. "My son needs his mother's milk," he says, the words coming slowly, deliberately. Could you possibly?" He falters, unsure how to phrase such a request to a woman he's just met. She looks up at him, understanding dawning in her eyes. "You want me to nurse him?" Timothy nods, embarrassed but desperate. "I'll pay you whatever you want. I just can't bear to see him cry like this." Her eyes flash with a sudden anger, catching him off guard. "I will do it, but not for money," she says fiercely. "No child should suffer like this, not when I can help." The vehemence in her voice shakes him, reminding him that this woman has her own grief, her own story. He's proposed a transaction when what she's offering is something far more sacred. "I'm sorry," he says softly. "I didn't mean to offend you." Her expression softens slightly. "You didn't know." She looks down at Theodore, who has fallen asleep against her chest. "What's his name?" "Theodore," Timothy replies. "Theodore James Payne." "Hello, Theodore," she whispers to the sleeping infant. "I'm Callista." As they stand there in the rain, this unlikely trio bound by loss and need, Timothy feels something shift within him. Not healing, not yet, but perhaps the very beginning of a path toward it. Without fully understanding why, he knows that meeting this woman has irrevocably altered his course. "My car is waiting," he says, gesturing toward the sleek black vehicle. Would you... would you come back to my house, just until he's fed and settled? Callista hesitates, looking back toward the graves they've both left behind. Then she nods, decision made. Yes, she says simply. I'll come. As Timothy helps her into the car, still holding Theodore, he catches a glimpse of their reflection in the window. A man, a woman, a baby, the appearance of a family where none exists. The image is both painful and strangely comforting, a ghost of what might have been and perhaps a whisper of what could still be. Chapter 3. Two Broken Hearts. The Payne Mansion looms before them, a grand Victorian structure set against the darkening sky. Rain continues to fall as the car pulls through the ornate iron gates and up the long driveway. Callista gazes out the window, Theodore still sleeping peacefully in her arms. The scale of Timothy's wealth is immediately apparent. Manicured gardens, a fountain centerpiece, architectural details that speak of old money and privilege. It's beautiful, she murmurs, though beautiful feels inadequate. The house is imposing, almost intimidating in its grandeur. Timothy glances at her, his expression inscrutable. It's just a house? But they both know it's more than that. It's a monument to the life he built with his wife, the family they planned to raise here, the dreams now shattered by her absence. The car stops at the front entrance, where a butler waits beneath a large umbrella. He opens the door without a word, sheltering them as they exit the vehicle. Callista hesitates at the threshold, suddenly aware of her rain-soaked appearance, her simple black dress a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding her. Come, Timothy says, not unkindly. You need dry clothes, and Theodore will be hungry soon. They enter a foyer with soaring ceilings and a sweeping staircase. Portraits line the walls, generations of Paynes looking down with aristocratic detachment. Callista feels small, out of place, but Theodore's warm weight against her chest anchors her to her purpose. A housekeeper appears, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of Callista. Mr. Payne, welcome home. Shall I prepare a room for your guest? Yes, Anna. And bring warm clothes, something comfortable. Timothy turns to Callista. Would you like to rest before Theodore wakes? No, Callista replies, her voice soft but firm. I'd prefer to stay with him. He'll be hungry soon. Timothy nods, directing her toward a sitting room off the main hall. The space is less formal than the entryway, with plush sofas and a crackling fire that chases away the damp chill. Callista settles into an armchair, adjusting Theodore against her shoulder. Your home is lovely, she says, attempting small talk to bridge the awkwardness between them. It was Sophia's project, Timothy replies, his voice catching slightly on his wife's name. She renovated it room by room after we married. She had excellent taste. Yes. The single word contains volumes of grief. An uncomfortable silence falls between them, broken only by the gentle pop and hiss of the fire. Callista studies Timothy's profile as he stares into the flames. He's handsome in a classical way, strong jaw, aristocratic nose, eyes that might be kind if they weren't so haunted. His wealth is evident not just in his home, but in his bearing, the cut of his suit, the subtle markers of privilege. May I ask, she begins, but is interrupted by the door opening. An older woman stands in the doorway, her silver hair styled immaculately, her posture rigid with disapproval. Her gaze sweeps over Callista, taking in her disheveled appearance and the baby in her arms. Timothy, she says, her voice crisp with authority. Who is this person? Timothy straightens, tension immediately visible in his shoulders. Mother, I didn't expect you until tomorrow. Clearly, her tone could freeze water. You haven't answered my question. This is Callista, Timothy says, gesturing toward her. She has kindly agreed to help with Theodore. Help? Genevieve Payne's eyebrows arch incredulously. In what capacity, exactly? Before Timothy can respond, Theodore stirs, his face scrunching as he begins to fuss. His tiny hands wave in the air, his hunger making itself known. Callista instinctively shifts him to a more comfortable position, murmuring soothingly. "He's hungry," she says simply, looking up at Genevieve. "I've recently lost my own baby, and I still have milk. I'm going to nurse him." Genevieve's expression shifts from disapproval to shock, then back to thinly veiled hostility. "Timothy, a word. It's not a request." They step outside, but their voices carry through the partially closed door. "Have you lost your mind?" Genevieve hisses. "Bringing a stranger into our home, allowing her to nurse Theodore. What do we know about this woman?" "She lost her husband and child," Timothy replies, his voice tight with restraint. "She's here to help Theodore. That's all that matters right now." "That's all that matters? What about diseases? What about her background? What about—" "Enough." Timothy's voice, while not raised, carries an authority that silences even his formidable mother. "Theodore has been crying non-stop since we brought him home. The moment she held him, he quieted. I don't care about her background or where she comes from. I care that my son is no longer suffering." There's a moment of tense silence before Timothy continues, his voice softer but no less firm. "She stays, Mother, at least until we find a more permanent solution." The door opens and they return. Timothy's face is composed, but Callista can see the strain around his eyes. Genevieve's expression is cold, her disapproval radiating like frost. "Anna will show you to the nursery," Timothy says to Callista. "It has a comfortable chair for feeding." Callista nods, rising carefully with Theodore, who is now fully awake and beginning to cry in earnest. As the housekeeper leads her upstairs, she feels Genevieve's critical gaze following her every step. The nursery is a revelation, a room clearly designed with love and anticipation. Soft blue walls with hand-painted clouds, a mahogany crib with intricate carvings, shelves filled with books and stuffed animals. It's the nursery of a child who was desperately wanted, eagerly awaited. The room Sophia never got to use. "Here you are, miss," Anna says, indicating a plush rocking chair by the window. "I'll bring you some tea after the little one is fed." "Thank you," Callista replies, settling into the chair. Once alone, she takes a deep breath, the reality of her situation washing over her. This morning she buried her baby, the final link to her husband. Now she sits in a stranger's home, preparing to nurse his child. The symmetry is both beautiful and painful, her empty arms filled by a baby who needs her, even as his mother's arms remain forever empty. Theodore's cries grow more insistent. With practiced movements, Callista adjusts her dress and brings him to her breast. The moment he latches on, his tiny body relaxes, his cries ceasing as he nurses hungrily. She looks down at his face, so perfect and innocent, unaware of the tragedy that connects them. "Hello, little one," she whispers, stroking his downy head. "You and I have something in common, you know. We both lost someone we love before we had the chance to say goodbye." Tears slip down her cheeks as she rocks gently, the motion soothing both the baby and herself. In this quiet moment, the walls she's built around her heart since James's death begin to crack. Not healing, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of it. A soft knock at the door interrupts her thoughts. Timothy enters, his expression softening at the sight of them. He stands awkwardly by the door, clearly uncertain whether to advance or retreat. Is everything all right?" he asks. Callista nods. "He was very hungry, but he's doing well now." Timothy takes a hesitant step forward, his eyes fixed on his son's face. "Thank you," he says, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know what we would have done if we hadn't met you today." "It was fate," Callista replies softly. "Or perhaps something more deliberate." "What do you mean?" She meets his gaze steadily. "I believe our spouses brought us together. They couldn't bear to see us suffering alone. Timothy looks away, clearly uncomfortable with the sentiment. I don't believe in such things. What do you believe in, Timothy Payne? The question slips out before she can stop it. He's silent for a long moment, his eyes returning to his son. I used to believe in forever, he finally says. Now I'm not sure what's left. The raw honesty in his voice resonates with something deep inside Callista. They may come from different worlds, but grief has made them equals, stripped them both to their essential selves. Stay, Timothy says suddenly. Not just today. Stay and help with Theodore. I'll compensate you, of course. I already told you I don't want your money, Callista replies, a flash of pride coloring her tone. Then what do you want? The question hangs between them, weighted with possibilities neither is ready to acknowledge. Callista looks down at Theodore, now sleeping peacefully at her breast, his tiny hand resting against her skin. I want to feel useful again, she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to believe there's still purpose in my life. Being here, helping him, it feels right, like something good can come from all this pain. Timothy nods, understanding flickering in his eyes. Then stay, for as long as you both need. As he turns to leave, Callista's voice stops him. Your mother doesn't approve. My mother rarely approves of anything I do, he replies with a hint of wry humor, the first she's seen from him. But this is my home, and Theodore is my son. The decision is mine. After he's gone, Callista continues rocking, watching the rain trail down the nursery windows. Beyond the grounds of the Payne estate, the cemetery where her husband and son rest becomes invisible in the gathering dusk. Yet somehow she feels closer to them here in this room, with this child in her arms, than she has since they left her. Are you watching? She whispers to James, to her unnamed son. Is this what you wanted for me? Theodore stirs in his sleep, making small, contented sounds against her chest. For the first time in months, the crushing weight of grief shifts slightly, allowing her to draw a full breath. It's not happiness. That seems an impossible destination from where she stands. But perhaps it's the first step on a long journey back towards something resembling life. Chapter 4. The Cold Mansion. Morning light filters through the heavy brocade curtains of the guest room where Callista has spent the night. She awakens slowly, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings, the hand-painted ceiling, the antique furnishings, the silken sheets beneath her. For one blessed moment, her mind is empty of grief, free of the crushing weight of memory. Then reality crashes back, and she remembers the cemetery, the rain, Timothy Payne, and his motherless son. The clothes she'd been wearing yesterday have been laundered and pressed, laid out with careful precision on a nearby chair. Beside them rests a selection of new garments, still bearing price tags, designer labels, expensive. A note in elegant handwriting reads, "Should you require alternatives, TP." Callista runs her fingers over the fine fabrics, touched by the gesture but uncomfortable with its implications. She doesn't want to be indebted to Timothy Payne, doesn't want to be another employee in his grand house. What she's offering, her milk, her comfort, her understanding, feels too intimate, too sacred for such a transactional relationship. A soft knock interrupts her thoughts. "Come in," she calls, quickly pulling on her robe. Anna, the housekeeper, enters with Theodore in her arms. The baby is fussing, his tiny face red with displeasure. "I'm sorry to disturb you, miss," Anna says, bouncing Theodore gently. "But the little master has been crying for an hour now. We've tried the formula, but he won't take it." Callista holds out her arms instinctively. "Give him to me." The moment Theodore is in her embrace, his cries begin to soften. His small hands grasp at her robe, his hunger evident in the frantic movement. Callista settles into a nearby chair, adjusting her clothing to nurse him. Thank you, miss, Anna says, relief evident in her voice. None of us could calm him. It's like he knows. Knows what? Anna hesitates. That his mother is gone. That he's alone. He's not alone, Callista says firmly, watching as Theodore nurses contentedly. He has his father. A shadow crosses Anna's face. Mr. Payne is struggling. He hasn't held the baby since they came home from the hospital. The revelation doesn't surprise Callista, yet it pierces her heart. She remembers Timothy's words at the cemetery. What does he need that I can possibly give? A man drowning in his own grief, unable to reach out to the child who needs him most. Where is Mr. Payne now? She asks. In his study. He's been there since dawn. Anna moves efficiently around the room, opening curtains, straightening items. Breakfast will be served in the main dining room at 9, should you wish to join the family. The word family hangs awkwardly between them. What family? A broken man, his resentful mother, a baby who cries for absent arms. This is not a family, but the wreckage of one. I'll be down shortly, Callista replies. Thank you, Anna. Once alone with Theodore, Callista allows herself to study his features more carefully. He has Sophia's delicate nose, Timothy's strong jawline already hinted at in his tiny face. A perfect blend of his parents, living proof of their love. How can Timothy not see the miracle in that? How can he look at this child and see only loss? After Theodore is fed and sleeping peacefully in her arms, Callista dresses in her own clothes, ignoring the expensive alternatives. She makes her way downstairs, following the sound of voices to the dining room. The space is formal and imposing, a massive mahogany table set for 3, crystal glasses catching the morning light, fresh flowers arranged with artistic precision. Timothy sits at one end, newspaper open before him, coffee untouched. Genevieve occupies the other end, her posture regal, her silver hair styled perfectly despite the early hour. Their conversation halts abruptly as Callista enters, Theodore still cradled against her chest. "Good morning," she says, hesitating at the threshold. Timothy rises immediately, manners overriding his discomfort. "Callista, please join us." He gestures to the chair at his right. "I thought the baby would be with his nurse," Genevieve remarks, her tone making it clear she disapproves of his presence at the breakfast table. "Theodore is comfortable with me," Callista replies evenly, "and I prefer to keep him close." A servant appears at her elbow, pulling out her chair, another offering coffee. The formality feels strange after months of eating standing over the kitchen sink, if she remembered to eat at all. "Did you sleep well?" Timothy asks, folding his newspaper. "Yes, thank you." A lie, but a polite one. Sleep has been elusive since James died, more so since losing their baby. "We need to discuss arrangements," Genevieve interjects, cutting directly to business. "How long do you anticipate this arrangement will continue?" Callista meets the older woman's gaze steadily. "Until Theodore no longer needs me." "And what exactly does that mean?" Genevieve's eyes narrow. "A week, a month, a year. My grandson needs stability, not temporary solutions." "Mother," Timothy warns, but Genevieve continues, "We know nothing about you, Ms. Michaels. Your background, your qualifications." "My qualification is here in my arms," Callista interrupts, a flame of indignation lighting within her. "A baby who responds to my presence, who needs what I can provide. What other qualification matters?" Genevieve's lips thin to a disapproving line. "Background matters. Character matters. This house contains valuables worth more than you've likely seen in your lifetime." The implication hangs heavy in the air. "Are you suggesting I came here to steal from you?" Callista asks, incredulous. "That I buried my child yesterday as part of some elaborate scheme to access your silver spoons?" Timothy sets down his coffee cup with excessive care. "That's enough, Mother. Callista is here at my invitation to help my son. Your concerns are noted, but unnecessary. A tense silence falls over the table. Theodore stirs against Callista's chest, perhaps sensing the hostility around him. She soothes him automatically, her hand rubbing gentle circles on his back. I want CCTV cameras installed, Genevieve says finally, in all the common areas and hallways. We already have a security system, Timothy begins. Not adequate. Genevieve's tone brooks no argument. I will not have unknown persons wandering freely through this house without proper monitoring. Timothy looks to Callista, apology in his eyes. Would that make you uncomfortable? What a strange question, Callista thinks. As if her comfort matters in this house of grief and suspicion. As if she hasn't already endured far worse than being watched by cameras. Install whatever makes you feel secure, Mrs. Payne, she says calmly. I have nothing to hide. Genevieve seems surprised by her acquiescence. Well, that's settled then. The meal continues in uncomfortable silence, broken only by the occasional clink of silverware against fine china. Callista eats little, her attention focused on Theodore, on the way his small hand clutches at her blouse, even in sleep, on the perfect curve of his eyelashes against his cheek. Timothy watches them, his expression unreadable. There's hunger in his gaze, but not for the food before him. Hunger for connection, for understanding, for someone to bridge the chasm between himself and his son. Callista meets his eyes across the table, a moment of silent communication passing between them. I see your pain. I know it, because it's mine too. After breakfast, Timothy approaches as Callista rises to leave. I need to apologize for my mother, he says quietly. She's protective, but that's no excuse for rudeness. You don't need to apologize for her, Callista replies. I understand her concerns. I'm a stranger in your home. Not a stranger, he says, his voice dropping lower. Not anymore. The words hang between them, weighted with possibility. Callista feels a flutter in her chest that has nothing to do with grief or sympathy, a spark of something she thought had died with James. The realization frightens her. I should put Theodore down for his nap, she says, taking a step back. Timothy nods, composure returning. Of course, and Callista, he hesitates. Please don't take my mother's words to heart. This house has been cold since Sophia died. Your presence, it helps. Not just Theodore. Before she can respond, he turns and leaves, his shoulders set in a rigid line that speaks volumes about the burden he carries. Callista watches him go, Theodore warm against her heart, understanding dawning like the slow rise of the sun. This mansion isn't just cold because of its marble floors and high ceilings. It's cold because grief has frozen its inhabitants, trapped them in the moment of loss. Just as she has been frozen, going through the motions of living without truly being alive. As she climbs the grand staircase to the nursery, Callista feels something shifting within her, ice cracking, allowing the first tentative flow of warmth to return. Not for herself, not yet, but for the small life in her arms, for the man with haunted eyes who doesn't know how to reach for what he needs most. What do you think, Theodore? She whispers to the sleeping baby. Should we try to thaw this cold mansion together? Theodore's only response is to nestle closer, his complete trust in her both a blessing and a responsibility. In this moment, Callista makes a silent promise, to this child, to herself, to the husband and son she lost. She will bring warmth back to this house of sorrow, one day, one heart at a time. Beginning with her own, Chapter 5, Suspicions and Surveillance Days, blur into weeks within the walls of the Payne mansion. Callista falls into a rhythm dictated by Theodore's needs, feeding, bathing, rocking him to sleep when nightmares seem to plague his infant dreams. She moves through the grand rooms like a ghost, present yet separate, her status in the household undefined. The cameras appear overnight, discrete black domes nestled in corners, their lenses tracking movement throughout the house. Genevieve watches the footage religiously, as if expecting to catch Callista in some nefarious act. But there is nothing to see except a young woman caring for a baby, moving with quiet grace through rooms built for grander purposes than grief. On this particular evening, Callista sits in the garden, Theodore sleeping peacefully in the bassinet beside her. The autumn air carries a hint of coming frost, but the sun still warms the stone bench where she's perched, a book open but unread in her lap. "May I join you?" Timothy's voice startles her from her reverie. He stands a few feet away, hands thrust into the pockets of his expensive trousers, uncertainty written across his features. In the weeks since she's arrived, they've rarely been alone together, their interactions limited to brief exchanges over Theodore or polite conversation at meals. "Of course," Callista replies, shifting to make room on the bench. He sits beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. His cologne, subtle and masculine, catches on the breeze. For a moment, they're both silent, watching the play of late afternoon light through the branches of a massive oak. "Theodore is thriving," Timothy says finally. "Dr. Reynolds was quite impressed at his checkup yesterday." "He's a strong baby," Callista responds, glancing at the sleeping infant. "Determined, like his mother." The words appear to surprise Timothy himself, a rare reference to Sophia that isn't clouded by intense pain. "Tell me about her," Callista says gently. "About Sophia." Timothy stares straight ahead, his profile etched against the golden light. For a moment, Callista thinks he won't answer, but then he speaks, his voice low and measured. "She was brilliant, an architect with a passion for historical preservation. We met when my company was renovating a 19th-century building downtown. She refused to approve my plans, told me they prioritized profit over preservation. She was right, of course." "She sounds formidable," Callista remarks. "She was." Pride colors his tone. "Brilliant, passionate, uncompromising. My mother disapproved, of course. Sophia came from a middle-class family, worked her way through college. Not the society bride Genevieve had envisioned. But you married her anyway, against every warning. I would have given up everything for her." The smile fades. "In the end, I lost her instead." The raw honesty in his voice creates a crack in the careful distance Callista has maintained. Before she can respond, footsteps on the garden path announce Genevieve's approach. "There you are, Timothy," she says, her gaze sliding dismissively over Callista. "The investors from Singapore are on the line." After he leaves, Genevieve remains, her critical eyes now focused entirely on Callista. "My son is vulnerable," she says without preamble. "Grief has clouded his judgment." Callista meets her gaze steadily. "I'm not taking advantage of his grief, Mrs. Payne." "Aren't you?" Genevieve gestures toward the mansion. "Living in luxury, all expenses paid, no responsibilities beyond feeding a baby. Many would consider that advantageous." "I lost my husband and my baby," Callista says quietly. "I'm not looking for advantages. I'm just trying to survive each day." "A convenient story." "Do you think I'm lying?" Anger flares, hot and unexpected. "Do you think I invented my grief to infiltrate your home?" "My son is worth billions," Genevieve states coldly. "He's vulnerable, isolated in his grief, and you, a beautiful young widow with a tragic story, appear at precisely the right moment. The timing is convenient." The accusation is so outrageous that Callista can only stare in disbelief. "You think I'm trying to seduce your son? For his money?" "It wouldn't be the first time a woman has tried." Genevieve's eyes narrow. "But I'm watching you, Ms. Michaels, every moment, every interaction. And at the first sign that you're taking advantage of my son's vulnerability, you'll find yourself back in whatever modest circumstances you came from." That evening, Callista sits in the nursery rocking chair, Theodore asleep against her chest. The house is quiet, the only sound the gentle creak of the chair against the hardwood floor. Her thoughts circle back to Genevieve's accusations, to the realization that her presence here is viewed not as a blessing but as a threat. A soft knock at the door interrupts her thoughts. Timothy enters, his tie loosened, fatigue evident in the shadows beneath his eyes. "Is he asleep?" he asks, his voice hushed. Callista nods. "Just drifted off." "He was fussy tonight." Timothy approaches, looking down at his son with a complicated mixture of love and hesitation. He has yet to hold Theodore for more than a few moments, as if afraid the contact might shatter something fragile within himself. "I wanted to apologize," he says, still looking at Theodore rather than Callista. "For my mother. Anna told me she confronted you in the garden." "You don't need to apologize for her." "I do." He finally meets her gaze. "She's afraid." "Of me?" The idea would be laughable if it weren't so hurtful. Of change, of losing control, of seeing me move forward when she hasn't yet accepted Sophia's death. He runs a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of discomposure. "She loved Sophia, eventually after years of resistance. Accepting you into our household feels to her like a betrayal." "I'm not trying to replace anyone," Callista says softly. "I'm just trying to help." "I know that." His voice drops lower. "But my mother sees how Theodore responds to you, how you've brought life back into rooms that felt like mausoleums. She sees what I see, that you're healing something broken in this house." "I'm sorry about my mother's cameras," Timothy continues, "her suspicions. You deserve better after all you've done for us." "It's all right," Callista replies, though they both know it isn't. "She's protecting her family." Timothy takes a step closer, close enough that Callista can see the flecks of amber in his hazel eyes. "I got you something," he says, producing a small box from his pocket. "It's not payment. I know how you feel about that. Just a thank you." Inside rests a delicate silver bracelet with a small heart charm. Simple, elegant, nothing ostentatious that might suggest inappropriate intentions. "It's beautiful," she whispers, genuinely touched by the gesture. "May I?" Timothy takes the bracelet, his fingers brushing against her wrist as he fastens it. The touch, brief and innocent, sends an unexpected current through her, a reminder that beneath her grief, she is still alive, still capable of feeling. Timothy steps back, as if also realizing the boundary being approached. "I should let you put him down," he says, gesturing toward the crib. Callista nods, rising carefully with Theodore. As she lays him in his crib, she feels Timothy watching them, his gaze a tangible weight. When she turns, he's closer than she expected, his expression unguarded for once. "Callista," he begins, then stops, struggling for words. "I don't know how to thank you for what you've done, for Theodore, for this household." "You don't need to thank me," she replies. "Being here, helping him, it helps me too." Their eyes hold for a moment too long, something unspoken passing between them. Then Timothy nods, composure returning like a mask sliding back into place. "Good night, Callista," he says, moving toward the door. After he's gone, Callista touches the bracelet on her wrist, the silver cool against her skin. She knows she should feel like an intruder, an outsider under constant surveillance. Yet somehow, despite Genevieve's suspicions and the cameras tracking her movements, she feels something unexpected taking root. Belonging. Not to the mansion with its marble floors and priceless art, but to the small being in the crib, to the moments of genuine connection with his father. It terrifies her, this tentative attachment forming when she'd sworn never to risk her heart again. But as she watches Theodore's chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath, Callista acknowledges the truth she's been fighting. In caring for this motherless child, In bringing warmth back to this cold mansion, she has begun to thaw her own frozen heart. And that, perhaps, is what Genevieve fears most of all. Chapter 6. Silent Affections. 3 months pass like the turning of seasons within the Payne mansion. Autumn fades into winter, the gardens now blanketed in snow. Inside, Theodore grows stronger each day, smiling now, recognizing faces, his dark eyes following Callista's movements with unmistakable devotion. The household has settled into a rhythm around his needs. The staff now defer to Callista in matters concerning the baby. Even Genevieve maintains a careful, if cold, civility, her open hostility replaced by watchful tolerance. Only Timothy remains an enigma, his behavior toward Callista a study in contradictions. Some days he seeks her company, lingering in the nursery to watch her with Theodore, engaging her in conversations that stretch long into the evening. Other days he's distant, buried in work, avoiding the emotional intimacy that threatens to develop between them. Today is Christmas Eve, the mansion transformed by elegant decorations. Callista stands by the library window, Theodore in her arms, watching as snow falls gently outside. "Your first Christmas," she whispers to him, touching his small hand. Theodore gurgles in response, his tiny fingers wrapping around one of hers. The gesture fills Callista with a bittersweet joy. She loves this child with a fierceness that sometimes frightens her. He is not her son, she reminds herself. One day her role in his life will end. "There you are," Timothy's voice comes from the doorway. He enters, snowflakes still melting on the shoulders of his cashmere coat. "Anna said you might be in here." "We were admiring the snow," Callista replies, turning so Theodore can see his father. The baby immediately brightens, arms waving in excitement. Timothy's expression softens as he approaches them. "He recognizes me more now." "Of course he does. You're his father." A shadow crosses Timothy's face, the familiar guilt that still plagues him, the sense that he has failed his son by being unable to fully embrace fatherhood through his grief. "I have something for you," he says, changing the subject. "For both of you, actually." He produces 2 packages, one small, wrapped in silver paper with an elegant bow, the other larger, wrapped in cheerful paper decorated with teddy bears. Inside Theodore's gift is a stuffed elephant, impossibly soft and clearly expensive. Callista's package contains a necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small pendant in the shape of an infinity symbol, tiny diamonds catching the firelight. "Timothy," she breathes, genuinely stunned. "This is too much." "It's not enough," he says quietly. "Not for what you've given us." Their eyes meet over Theodore's head, and Callista feels that now familiar flutter in her chest. Timothy reaches out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face, the touch feather-light yet electric. "May I?" he asks, taking the necklace from its box. Callista nods, turning slightly so he can fasten it around her neck. His fingers are warm against her skin, lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary. When she turns back, their faces are close, too close for the careful boundaries they've maintained. For an instant, Callista thinks he might kiss her, can see the thought cross his mind. But Theodore chooses that moment to drop his elephant, breaking the spell with his distressed cry. Timothy pulls back, composure settling back over him. "I should let you put him down for his nap," he says, rising from the sofa. "And I have some calls to make before dinner." That night, after Theodore is asleep, Callista stands before the mirror in her room, the necklace still at her throat. Behind her reflection, she can almost see James, his kind eyes, his gentle smile. Guilt washes over her, sharp and unexpected. "I'm not betraying you," she whispers to his ghost. "Am I?" The answer comes in the memory of his final request. "Promise me you'll find happiness again." Had he somehow known that her heart would have the capacity to love after him? A knock interrupts her thoughts. She opens it to find Anna, the housekeeper, her expression troubled. "Mr. Payne asked me to give you this," she says, holding out an envelope. "He's had to leave for an emergency meeting in the city." Once alone, Callista opens the envelope. Inside is a card, Timothy's strong handwriting flowing across the heavy paper. "Callista, I'm sorry to leave so abruptly. Business that couldn't wait, though tonight of all nights, I wish it could have. I find myself thinking of you even when work demands my attention. Your grace with Theodore, your strength in the face of loss, the way you've brought warmth back into rooms that felt empty after Sophia died. The necklace is not a payment or obligation. It's a symbol of something infinite. My gratitude, yes, but also something more that I'm not yet brave enough to name, something I never expected to feel again. We'll talk when I return. There's much I want to say to you, if you're willing to listen. Until then. Timothy." Callista reads the note twice, her fingers tracing the words. The carefully constructed walls around her heart tremble with each line, each implied confession. She moves to the window, looking out at the snow-covered grounds of the estate. Somewhere in the city, Timothy is thinking of her, carrying feelings he's not yet ready to voice. And here she stands, his son sleeping peacefully down the hall, wearing a necklace that symbolizes something infinite between them. How did this happen? How did she move from the depths of grief to this precipice of new beginning? The journey seems both impossibly fast and achingly slow. Every day since James died leading her here, to this moment of choice. Because it is a choice, she realizes, to open herself to the possibility of loving again, to allow herself to build something new from the ashes of what was lost. Timothy is offering her a future she never imagined, not a replacement for what she lost, but a different path, equally valid, equally precious. Fear and hope war within her, each powerful in its own right. Fear of loving and losing again, of the pain that inevitably follows when happiness is snatched away. Hope that perhaps, within the walls of this once cold mansion, she has found not just purpose, but the chance to fulfill James's final wish for her. Down the hall, Theodore stirs in his sleep. Without thinking, she moves toward the nursery, drawn by instinct and affection. She finds him awake but quiet, dark eyes blinking up at the mobile above his crib. "Hello, little one," she murmurs, lifting him gently. "Can't sleep?" In this quiet moment, the truth she's been avoiding becomes impossible to deny. She loves this child as if he were her own. And his father. Her feelings for Timothy have grown beyond gratitude or friendship into something deeper, something with roots that reach toward a future she had stopped believing in. "Your mother would want you to be loved," she whispers to Theodore. "And your father deserves to be happy again. Perhaps we all do." As snow continues to fall outside, Callista makes a decision. When Timothy returns, she will listen to what he has to say. She will open herself to the possibility that life can bloom again after devastating loss, that joy can return even to hearts as broken as hers. "I think I'm ready," she whispers, more to herself than to the sleeping baby. "I think this is what healing feels like." Chapter 7. The Ultimatum. Spring arrives at the Payne estate with an explosion of color, cherry blossoms painting the air pink, daffodils dotting the lawns with gold, new leaves unfurling on ancient oaks. The grounds transform from their winter slumber into vibrant life, mirroring the subtle change within the mansion's walls. Theodore approaches his first birthday with each passing day. Timothy has organized a small gathering to celebrate the milestone, just family and a few close friends. Callista watches from across the sunlit conservatory as Timothy holds his son, their matching smiles creating an ache of tenderness in her chest. The past few months have seen Timothy grow increasingly comfortable in his role as father, his initial hesitation replaced by genuine joy in Theodore's company. Their relationship, too, has evolved into something neither of them has dared to name. Dinners shared after Theodore is asleep, hands that find each other in quiet moments, conversations that stretch into the night, a delicate dance of two people healing together, finding unexpected solace in shared understanding. Genevieve observes it all with calculating eyes, her disapproval evident in the tightening of her mouth whenever she witnesses a moment of intimacy between Callista and her son. Today she stands like a sentinel at the edge of the celebration, champagne flute in hand, her elegant appearance belying the storm Callista senses brewing within her. "He's grown so much," Timothy's sister Rebecca remarks, joining Callista by the window. "You've done wonders with him." Callista smiles, watching as Theodore smashes cake between his fingers with gleeful abandon. "He's an easy child to love." "And my brother?" Rebecca asks, her tone deliberately casual. "Is he also easy to love?" Heat rises to Callista's cheeks. "I don't know what you mean." Rebecca's laugh is gentle, without malice. "I think you do. I've known Timothy all his life, and I haven't seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you since Sophia died, maybe not even then." Before Callista can respond, Timothy approaches with Theodore in his arms, the baby's face and outfit smeared with frosting. "I think someone needs a cleanup," he says, smiling at Callista. "He's been asking for you." Theodore reaches for her immediately, confirming Timothy's words. As she takes him, their fingers brush, a touch that lingers despite the public setting. "I'll help you," Timothy offers, his hand settling naturally at the small of her back as they walk toward the nursery. Callista feels Genevieve's gaze following them, sharp as a blade between her shoulder blades. The older woman's patience, she senses, is wearing dangerously thin. Later, after the guests have departed and Theodore is tucked into his crib, surrounded by new toys, Callista wanders to the garden. The spring evening is mild, fragrant with blooming flowers and fresh grass. She sits on her favorite bench, breathing in the peaceful moment, reflecting on the day's celebration. 1 year. 1 full year since she lost her own child, since she met Timothy in the cemetery, since life took an unexpected turn towards something resembling hope. The realization brings both gratitude and a renewed stab of grief for all she's lost. "You've become quite comfortable here." Genevieve's voice cuts through her reverie. The older woman stands on the garden path, elegant in a pale blue dress that complements her silver hair, a cashmere wrap draped around her shoulders against the evening chill. "The gardens are beautiful this time of year," Callista replies neutrally. "That's not what I meant." Genevieve moves closer, her posture rigid with barely contained anger. "You've made yourself quite at home in my son's life, in his heart. One might almost think you planned it this way." Callista sighs, weary of this recurring accusation. "I've never had any agenda beyond helping Theodore." "Is that what you call it? Helping?" Genevieve's laugh is brittle. "My grandson is a year old now. He can survive perfectly well on formula and solid food. Your services, such as they were, are no longer required." The words land like physical blows, though Callista has been half expecting them for months. Still, the finality in Genevieve's tone sends a chill through her that has nothing to do with the evening air. "Theodore still needs me," she says, keeping her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. "And I believe Timothy wants me to stay." What Timothy wants and what Timothy needs are two very different things. Genevieve's voice drops lower, more dangerous. "He's vulnerable, still grieving Sophia. You've taken advantage of that vulnerability, inserted yourself into his life, made yourself indispensable. It's quite the performance." Callista rises, anger now eclipsing her initial shock. "Is it so impossible to believe that I genuinely care for Theodore, for Timothy, that perhaps they care for me too?" "Care?" Genevieve scoffs. "My son was building a life with the woman he loved since college. They were creating a family. Then she died, and suddenly you appear. Young, beautiful, conveniently bereaved yourself. You think I don't see what's happening? You're trying to replace her. I've never tried to replace anyone, Callista says firmly. Sophia will always be Theodore's mother. Nothing can change that. Yet here you are, playing house in the home she created, wrapping my son around your finger, making my grandson dependent on you. Genevieve steps closer, her perfume, expensive and overwhelming, filling the space between them. It ends now. That's not your decision to make, isn't it? A cold smile curves Genevieve's lips. This is my house too. I have more right to be here than you ever will. Callista meets her gaze steadily. I won't leave without telling Timothy. You think he'll choose you over family? Over his mother? Genevieve shakes her head in mock pity. You overestimate your position, my dear. You were convenient, a balm for his immediate grief. But Timothy will move on eventually, to someone appropriate, someone from our world. Is that what this is about? That I'm not from your world? Callista can't keep the bitterness from her voice. That I'm not wealthy enough, connected enough for the Payne dynasty. Partly, Genevieve admits, unapologetic. But mostly it's about protecting my son from making decisions in grief that he'll regret once he's thinking clearly again. Callista's hands tremble with suppressed emotion. I think Timothy is perfectly capable of deciding what he wants. Perhaps, Genevieve's voice hardens, but are you prepared to force that decision? To make him choose between his mother and a woman he's known for less than a year? Between his family legacy and an outsider? The question strikes at Callista's deepest fear, that she's an interloper in this household, that her presence might ultimately cause more harm than good. I care too much about Timothy and Theodore to put them in that position, she says quietly. Then we understand each other. Genevieve's tone suggests victory. You'll leave quietly, without dramatic goodbyes. It's cleaner that way. Callista shakes her head, resolve strengthening. Number I won't leave without telling Timothy face to face. He deserves that much. Genevieve's expression darkens. Then I'll call security to remove you. How humiliating would that be? Leave with dignity while you still can. The threat hangs in the air between them, as tangible as the fragrance of spring blossoms. Callista weighs her options, the impossible choice before her. Stay and potentially force Timothy to choose between her and his mother, between the new feelings blooming between them and his family obligations. Or leave without explanation, disappearing from Theodore's life as suddenly as she entered it. I'll pack my things, she finally says, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'm leaving him a letter. He deserves to know why I left. Genevieve considers this, then nods once, sharply. Fine, but you'll be gone by morning. As the older woman walks away, satisfaction evident in her straight spine and measured steps, Callista remains in the garden, the beauty around her now a cruel contrast to the devastation within. The thought of leaving Theodore, of never again feeling his small body nestled against hers, never seeing his face light up in recognition, creates a physical pain in her chest. And Timothy, the memory of his note at Christmas, the promise of something infinite between them, now seems like a cruel joke. How can something infinite end so abruptly, so completely? Back in her room, Callista moves mechanically, packing the few belongings she brought with her and the gifts Timothy has given her over the months. Each item carries a memory, the silver bracelet from their early days together, books they discussed over late-night tea, the infinity necklace she hasn't removed since Christmas. She pauses at Theodore's nursery, finding him sleeping peacefully, unaware that his world is about to change once again. Tears stream silently down her face as she leans over his crib, memorizing the perfect curve of his cheek, the way his eyelashes fan against his skin, the smell of baby shampoo and innocence. I love you, she whispers, pressing the gentlest of kisses to his forehead. I will always love you, little one. In her letter to Timothy, she writes from her heart, explaining Genevieve's ultimatum, expressing her gratitude for the month she spent in his home, confessing the feelings she's developed for both him and Theodore. She avoids accusations or bitterness, knowing they would only make things more difficult for everyone involved. I won't be the cause of division between you and your mother, she writes. Theodore needs stability, needs his family united. Please understand that I'm leaving not because I want to, but because I believe it's best for all of you in the long run. The words feel inadequate, unable to capture the depth of her emotion or the pain of this second devastating loss. But they're all she has to offer. As dawn breaks over the estate, Callista slips out the side entrance, her small suitcase in hand. A taxi waits at the gate, arranged by the housekeeper who looked at her with sad, knowing eyes but asked no questions. The car pulls away, carrying her from the mansion that became her sanctuary, from the people who helped her heal only to break her heart anew. As the gates recede in the rear window, Callista touches the infinity necklace at her throat, a reminder that some connections transcend physical presence, that love once given cannot be taken back. She allows the tears to fall freely now, mourning not just what she's lost, but what might have been. The future she glimpsed in Timothy's eyes, in Theodore's trusting embrace. A future that now, like the mansion disappearing behind her, exists only in memory and silent affection. Chapter 8. Truth Revealed. Timothy returns to the mansion well after midnight, exhausted from a business trip that stretched longer than anticipated. The house is quiet, staff long since retired, only a few strategically placed lights illuminating his path. He loosens his tie as he climbs the stairs, his thoughts on Callista and Theodore, on the conversation he's been rehearsing for days, the feelings he's finally ready to acknowledge aloud. His first stop, as always, is Theodore's nursery. The room is bathed in soft light, his son sleeping peacefully. Timothy approaches the crib, heart swelling with love and lingering guilt. Love for this perfect being who carries Sophia's smile, guilt for the months he kept his distance, paralyzed by grief. I'm trying to be better for you, he whispers, touching Theodore's soft hair. Quietly, he leaves the nursery and moves toward Callista's room. The hour is late, but he needs to see her, even if just to say goodnight. He raises his hand to knock, then hesitates, noticing something unusual. The door is slightly ajar, the room beyond dark. Callista, he calls softly, pushing the door open wider. The room is empty, the bed untouched, the closet door open to reveal vacant hangers. Confusion gives way to alarm as Timothy moves further inside, switching on a lamp. The personal touches that made the space hers are gone, leaving the room as impersonal as a hotel suite. On the dresser lies an envelope with his name written in her elegant handwriting. His hands shake slightly as he opens it, a sense of dread building in his chest. As he reads her letter, expressions chase across his face, disbelief, anger, hurt, culminating in a raw anguish that leaves him gripping the edge of the dresser for support. The words blur before his eyes, but their meaning is unmistakable. Callista is gone, driven away by his mother's ultimatum, by fears of coming between him and his family. He checks his phone, finding several missed calls from Callista earlier in the day. She had tried to reach him, to explain in person, but he'd been in meetings, unavailable when she needed him most. Timothy moves through the house with purposeful strides, rage building with each step. He finds his mother in her sitting room, still awake despite the hour, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviews some document. "What did you do?" His voice is dangerously quiet. Genevieve looks up, unsurprised by his sudden appearance or his evident anger. "I assume you've discovered your house guest has departed." "She's not a house guest," Timothy replies, struggling to maintain his composure. She was. The words fail him, inadequate to describe what Callista had become to him, to Theodore. She was what, exactly? Genevieve removes her glasses, facing him squarely. A convenient nurse, a distraction from your grief, a replacement for Sophia. The accusation lands like a slap. How dare you reduce what she means to us to something so trivial? She saved Theodore when I couldn't, when I was too lost in my own pain to be the father he needed. And I'm grateful for that service, Genevieve says, her tone suggesting anything but gratitude. But Theodore is a year old now. He's thriving, eating solid foods. Her purpose here was fulfilled. Her purpose? Timothy's laugh is harsh, unfamiliar. You speak as if she were an employee hired for a specific task. She's a human being, Mother. One who has endured unimaginable loss and still found the capacity to love my son as if he were her own. That's precisely the problem, Genevieve snaps, her composure finally cracking. She's not his mother. Sophia is his mother. Sophia is dead. The words hang in the air, brutal in their finality. And while I will make sure Theodore knows her, honors her memory, the fact remains. He needs a mother's love in the present, not just in remembrance. You think I don't understand loss? I buried your father after 30 years of marriage. Genevieve rises, her presence still formidable. But making Callista a permanent part of our lives? It's setting all of you up for heartbreak. That's not your decision to make, Timothy says. It's mine. As Theodore's father, as the man who... He stops, the truth he's been dancing around for months, suddenly crystal clear. As the man who loves her. The admission hangs between them, changing everything. You barely know her, Timothy. I know enough. He runs a hand through his hair, frustration mounting. I know she's kind and strong and resilient. I know she loves my son without reservation. I know that when I'm with her, the world makes sense again. And what about her past? Her expectations? Have you considered the practical implications? You mean someone without wealth or social status? Timothy's voice drops to a dangerous quiet. Someone who doesn't meet your arbitrary standards for who's worthy of being a pain. I'm trying to protect you, to protect Theodore. From what? From happiness? From healing? Timothy shakes his head in disbelief. You've been watching Callista for months, Mother. What terrible thing did you discover? What grievous fault justified driving her away? Genevieve's silence is damning. I'm going to find her, he says, determination hardening his voice. And when I do, I'm bringing her home. This is not a discussion or a negotiation. It's a fact. And if I cannot accept her return, she asks, a final test. Timothy's answer is immediate, unwavering. Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live. The ultimatum hangs between them, a reversal of the one Genevieve delivered to Callista. Mother and son regard each other across a chasm of misunderstanding and hurt, both knowing that a line has been crossed that cannot be easily redrawn. You would choose her over me? Over family? I'm choosing happiness, Mother. For Theodore, for myself. Timothy's voice softens slightly. After a year of drowning in grief, I finally found someone who helps me breathe again. Something shifts in Genevieve's expression, not surrender exactly, but perhaps recognition that her control has limits she cannot overcome. Find her first, she says finally. Then we'll discuss terms. Dawn breaks over the city as Timothy's car weaves through early morning traffic. He has only one lead, the address on Callista's original employment paperwork, the modest house she shared with James before tragedy struck. The neighborhood is a stark contrast to the manicured elegance of the Payne estate. Small homes with postage stamp yards, cars that have seen better decades parked in narrow driveways. Timothy finds the address easily, his heart pounding as he approaches the front door. He knocks, waits, knocks again with greater urgency. Finally, the door opens to reveal a middle-aged woman with Callista's eyes, her expression wary. "Mrs. Michaels?" he asks. "Yes." Suspicion colors her tone. "I'm Timothy Payne. I'm looking for your daughter, Callista. It's urgent that I speak with her." Recognition dawns in the woman's eyes. "You're Theodore's father?" "Yes." Relief floods through him. "Is she here?" Mrs. Michaels hesitates, clearly protective of her daughter. "She arrived last night, completely heartbroken. What makes you think she wants to see you?" "Because I love her," he says simply. "Because my son loves her. Because without her, our home isn't a home at all." Mrs. Michaels studies him, measuring his sincerity. Finally, she steps back, opening the door wider. She's in the backyard. Timothy follows her through the modest house to a back door that opens onto a small garden. And there is Callista, seated on a wooden bench beneath a flowering dogwood tree, her profile carved against the morning light. The infinity necklace he gave her still gleams at her throat, catching sunlight with each breath she takes. "Callista." She turns at the sound of his voice, disbelief washing over her features. "Timothy, how did you really think I wouldn't come after you?" he asks, closing the distance between them. "That I would just let you disappear from our lives?" She rises, her composure clearly fragile. "Your mother made it clear that my presence was causing problems, that staying would force you to choose between your family and me. So you made the choice for me." There's no accusation in his tone, only understanding. "You decided what was best for all of us without giving me a voice. I thought I was doing the right thing. The right thing would have been to tell me what my mother said, to trust that I'm capable of standing up for what matters to me." "And what does matter to you, Timothy?" she asks, vulnerability raw in her expression. "You," he says without hesitation. "You and Theodore. The family we've been building together without even realizing it." The word family hangs between them, loaded with meaning, with promise. Callista shakes her head slightly, as if unable to trust what she's hearing. "What about your mother?" "The obligations of family." "I've done my duty to family my entire life," Timothy replies. "But I've learned something this past year. Duty without love is just empty obligation. And love, real love, is too rare to sacrifice for anyone's approval." Tears spill freely down Callista's cheeks now. "I never meant to come between you." "You didn't?" Timothy reaches for her hand, relief flooding through him when she doesn't pull away. "My mother created that division herself, with her suspicions, her inability to see that happiness can come in unexpected forms." He takes a deep breath, knowing the next words will change everything between them. "I love you, Callista. I think I've loved you since that day in the cemetery, when you held Theodore and he stopped crying for the first time since Sophia died. Not because you replaced her, no one ever could, but because you brought healing where there was only pain." "How can you be so sure?" Callista asks softly. "Grief can make people reach for comfort in ways that aren't always lasting." "I'm sure because I've had both," Timothy says earnestly. "I've known grief and comfort, loss and love. What I feel for you isn't just gratitude or convenience. It's deeper, stronger." He cups her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. "Come home, Callista. Not as Theodore's nurse or my guest, but as the woman I love, as part of our family. Theodore needs you. I need you." Callista closes her eyes briefly, leaning into his touch. When she opens them again, there's a clarity there, a decision made. "I love you too," she whispers. "I tried not to. I felt so guilty, as if loving you somehow diminished what I had with James. But he knew. Somehow he knew this would happen. that my heart could heal, could love again. Timothy's smile is radiant with relief and joy. Then come home. And your mother? She'll adapt, or she won't. Either way, my priority is creating a home filled with love for Theodore and for us. As the morning sun rises higher, warming the small garden around them, Timothy pulls Callista into his arms, his lips finding hers in their first kiss. Tender, questioning at first, then deepening as she responds, her body melting against his as if coming home after a long journey. "Let's go home," Timothy whispers against her lips. "Theodore is waiting." Chapter 9. The False Accusation. Summer blooms at the Payne estate, the gardens lush with color, the air heavy with the scent of roses and freshly cut grass. Inside the mansion, a transformation has taken place. Rooms once shrouded in grief now ring with Theodore's laughter, with music, with the sound of life returning. Callista moves through the grand spaces with greater confidence now, no longer a guest, but a woman who belongs. Since her return after proving her innocence, her relationship with Timothy has deepened, their love now acknowledged openly. She wears a simple silver ring he gave her, not an engagement yet, but a promise of commitment that shines on her finger like a captured star. Only Genevieve remains guarded, her manner a careful, measured politeness. She observes Theodore's obvious attachment to Callista and the renewed vitality in her son, yet maintains a calculated distance that reveals her lingering reservations. On this particular morning, Callista sits on a blanket spread across the lawn, watching Theodore toddle after a butterfly, his delight evident in every wobbly step. At 15 months, he's becoming more independent each day, his personality emerging in flashes of determination and mischief. "Be careful, sweetheart," she calls as he ventures toward a flower bed, the protective instinct automatic now. Theodore turns at the sound of her voice, his smile radiant with recognition and trust. "Kaka!" he exclaims, his version of her name a recent development that never fails to melt her heart. As she scoops him up, covering his chubby cheeks with playful kisses that elicit delighted shrieks, Timothy approaches from the house. "He adores you," he says, his eyes soft with an emotion that still takes her breath away. "The feeling is mutual," she replies as he settles beside them on the blanket, Theodore immediately scrambling into his father's lap with excited babbling. Timothy listens with exaggerated seriousness. "Is that so?" The butterfly was blue. How extraordinary. They sit together, a picture of domestic harmony that would have seemed impossible a year ago when they met in the cemetery, both shattered by loss. Timothy suggests a weekend trip to the Children's Museum, making plans with the easy confidence of a family secure in its bonds. The idyllic moment is interrupted by Anna, the housekeeper, approaching with an apologetic expression. "Mr. Payne, I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's an urgent call from the London office." After Timothy leaves, Callista gathers their things as the afternoon sun intensifies, deciding the air-conditioned interior would be more comfortable for Theodore's nap. As they enter through the terrace doors, Genevieve stands in the grand foyer, engaged in conversation with the estate manager. "He appears ready for his nap," she observes, her gaze sliding over Theodore's sleepy form with genuine affection, before cooling as it reaches Callista. Yes, the heat exhausted him. Callista shifts Theodore higher on her hip. "If you'll excuse me, I'll take him upstairs." After settling Theodore in his crib, singing softly until his eyes drift closed, Callista passes the main salon and hears raised voices. Genevieve and Timothy in what sounds like a heated argument. "Absolutely certain," Genevieve is saying, her tone insistent. "It was my mother's necklace, Timothy, the diamond and sapphire one your father gave her on their 30th anniversary. It's been missing since yesterday." "And you immediately assume Callista took it?" Timothy's voice is tight with controlled anger. "Have you checked with the staff?" Perhaps it was misplaced during cleaning. It was in my jewelry box, which is kept locked at all times. The only person besides myself who has access to that room is Callista, who I've seen entering it on several occasions, supposedly looking for Theodore when he was playing hide-and-seek. Callista freezes, the accusation washing over her like ice water. She's never been in Genevieve's private rooms except when specifically invited, has never seen this necklace, let alone touched it. "This is absurd," Timothy says, echoing her thoughts. "Callista has no need or desire for your jewelry. Why would she risk everything we've built for a necklace, no matter how valuable?" The door swings open to reveal Genevieve, her expression transforming from surprise to triumph as she registers Callista's presence. "Well," she says, her voice carrying clearly into the room behind her, "it seems our discussion has an audience." Timothy appears behind his mother, his face paling as he sees Callista standing there. "Callista, I can explain." "No need," she interrupts, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I heard enough." "Then perhaps you can explain why my mother's necklace is missing," Genevieve suggests, her polite tone belied by the accusation in her eyes. "Since you seem to be the only one with opportunity and access." "I've never been in your room without you present," Callista replies, meeting the older woman's gaze directly. "I've never seen this necklace, let alone taken it." "A convenient denial," Genevieve observes, "but facts remain facts. The necklace is missing, and the security cameras show you on that floor yesterday afternoon when I was out." "I was looking for Theodore's stuffed elephant," Callista explains, remembering the frantic search for the toy he couldn't sleep without. "I never entered your room." Timothy steps forward, placing himself physically between the two women. "This is getting us nowhere. The necklace is just a thing, Mother. It can be replaced." "It's not about the monetary value," Genevieve snaps. "It's about trust, about who you've allowed into our home, into Theodore's life. I think," Genevieve continues, her voice hardening, "we should search Callista's belongings. If she has nothing to hide, she should have no objection." "Absolutely not," Timothy replies immediately. "I won't subject her to such humiliation." "It's all right, Timothy," Callista interjects, anger now overriding her initial shock. "Let her search. Let her see for herself that I'm not a thief." Genevieve's smile is cold with satisfaction. "How accommodating. Though, of course, if you did take it, you'd hardly keep it among your possessions." "Perhaps Ms. Michaels has already moved the necklace off the property entirely," Genevieve suggests, ignoring her son's darkening expression. "I haven't taken anything that doesn't belong to me," Callista says firmly. "I would never betray Timothy's trust that way." "So you say," Genevieve's gaze is calculating, measuring the impact of her next words. "But then, I suppose you've had quite a lot of practice presenting yourself as the perfect victim, haven't you? The grieving widow, the bereaved mother, such a convenient story to gain access to a wealthy household." "That's enough." Timothy's voice rises, genuine anger breaking through his usual restraint. "You've gone too far, Mother. But the damage is done." Genevieve's accusation has struck at Callista's most painful truths, twisting her genuine losses into a calculated ploy for gain. "I think," she says carefully, struggling to maintain her composure, "I should leave until this is resolved." "No," Timothy says immediately, reaching for her hand. "That's exactly what she wants, Callista. Don't let her drive you away again." "I'm not leaving permanently," Callista clarifies. "But I think some distance would be beneficial while you sort this out with your mother." "Where will you go?" "To my mother's, just for a day or two." She squeezes his hand, trying to convey reassurance she doesn't entirely feel. "I trust you to resolve this, Timothy. I know you believe me." "Of course I believe you," he says fiercely. "I know you couldn't have taken it." Genevieve makes a small sound of disbelief, which both ignore. "I'll go pack a few things," Callista says, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Would you call a car for me?" "I'll drive you myself," Timothy insists. As he steps away to use his phone, Callista finds herself alone with Genevieve in the grand foyer. The older woman studies her with clinical detachment. "I didn't take your necklace," Callista says quietly. "I have never taken anything from this house except the gifts Timothy has given me." "Perhaps not," Genevieve allows, surprising her. "But you've taken something far more valuable, my son's heart, my grandson's affection. Things I once believed belonged primarily to Sophia's memory." The admission is startling in its honesty, revealing the true source of Genevieve's animosity. Not fear of theft or social embarrassment, but something more primal. The fear of being replaced, of losing her central role in her son's life, in her grandson's future. "I've never tried to replace anyone," Callista says gently. "Not Sophia in Theodore's life or yours in Timothy's. There's room for all of us to love them, each in our own way." Genevieve's expression doesn't soften, but something shifts in her eyes, a brief acknowledgement perhaps of the truth in Callista's words. Before she can respond, Timothy returns, car keys in hand, his expression grim but determined. "Let's go," he says to Callista, pointedly ignoring his mother. "I'll have this resolved by the time I bring you back tomorrow." As they walk to the car, Callista can feel Genevieve's gaze following them, calculating and cold. The accusation of theft hangs over her like a storm cloud, threatening the fragile happiness she's found in this new life. Yet, as Timothy helps her into the car, his hand lingering on hers, his eyes fierce with protection and love, she finds her resolve strengthening. She survived the loss of her husband, the death of her child. She will survive this too, will fight for the family she's found with Timothy and Theodore. The necklace will either be found or it won't. But Callista knows the truth of her own heart, her own actions, and in the end, that truth is the only thing that truly matters. Chapter 10. The Investigation. The drive to Callista's mother's house passes in tense silence, both she and Timothy lost in their own thoughts. The accusation of theft hangs between them, not because Timothy believes it. He's made his faith in her abundantly clear, but because it represents yet another obstacle in their path, another test of the relationship they're building from the ashes of their respective losses. "I'll get to the bottom of this," Timothy says, as he pulls into the driveway of the modest home where Callista grew up. His jaw is set in the determined line she's come to recognize when he's facing a business challenge, a look that brooks no opposition. "I promise you that." Callista reaches across the console to touch his face, feeling the tension in his muscles. "I know you will. But Timothy, this isn't just about the necklace anymore. Your mother will always find reasons to doubt me, to test your loyalty." "Then we'll weather each storm as it comes," he replies, turning to kiss her palm. "Together." The word holds weight, a promise of partnership that warms her despite the circumstances. As they walk to the door, Timothy carries her small overnight bag, his other hand firmly entwined with hers. A physical declaration to anyone watching that they stand united. Mrs. Michaels opens the door before they can knock, her expression shifting from concern to resignation as she takes in the scene. "Again?" she asks simply, stepping back to let them enter. "Just for a night or two, Mom," Callista explains, the familiar childhood home both comforting and constricting after months in the spacious Payne mansion. "Until things settle down." As her mother prepares tea, Timothy sits beside Callista on the worn sofa, his voice low and earnest. "I don't believe for one moment that you took my mother's necklace. This visit is merely a strategic retreat while I resolve the situation." "And if you can't?" Mrs. Michaels asks, returning with a tray. "Then I'll need to make a choice," Timothy replies without hesitation, "and I've already made that choice. I choose her, every time." The conviction in his voice brings unexpected tears to Callista's eyes. In that moment, she loves him with a fierceness that takes her breath away, this man who defends her without hesitation, who sees past circumstantial evidence to the truth of her character. Back at the Payne mansion, Timothy wastes no time. He makes a series of rapid phone calls from his study, and within an hour, a discreet but thorough security team arrives, led by a former FBI investigator, now employed by Payne Industries for sensitive matters. "I want a complete investigation," Timothy instructs Harrison, the team leader. "Security footage, staff interviews, everything." The necklace is a family heirloom, diamond and sapphire in an Art Deco setting. According to my mother, it was last seen in her jewelry box 2 days ago. "And the prime suspect?" Harrison asks, his expression carefully neutral. "There is no prime suspect," Timothy corrects firmly. "This is about finding the necklace, not assigning blame. Is that clear?" As the security team disperses throughout the mansion, Timothy seeks out his mother. He finds her in the conservatory, arranging flowers with precise, deliberate movements that speak of carefully contained emotion. "The security team is here," he informs her without preamble. "They'll need access to your rooms, your jewelry box, everything." Genevieve snips a rose stem with perhaps more force than necessary. "So you've hired professionals to prove your girlfriend's innocence?" Rather than simply asking her what she did with my necklace. "I've hired professionals to find the truth," Timothy corrects, maintaining a calm he doesn't entirely feel. "Callista has already told me she didn't take it, and I believe her." "Your faith is touching if misplaced." Genevieve arranges the rose in the center of her composition. "Where is she now?" "Run back to that little house in the suburbs." "Mother," Timothy says, his tone firm but measured, "this investigation will determine what happened to the necklace. If it was taken, the responsible party will face consequences. But regardless of the outcome, I won't allow baseless suspicions to dictate my personal life or Theodore's relationships." Genevieve studies him, noting the quiet authority in his stance. "You seem quite confident in her innocence." "I am," Timothy confirms without hesitation, "and I'm equally confident in our future together." The investigation proves both thorough and discreet. Staff are interviewed individually, security footage reviewed minute by minute, Genevieve's rooms examined with forensic precision. Theodore, blissfully oblivious to the tension in the household, asks repeatedly for caw-caw, his distress growing as the day progresses without her familiar presence. "She'll be back soon, little man," Timothy promises as he rocks his son to sleep that night, the empty space in their lives already palpable after just 1 day without Callista. The following morning brings Harrison to Timothy's study, his expression carefully neutral as he places a tablet on the desk. "We've completed our investigation, Mr. Payne," he says, "and we've found something you should see." Timothy steels himself, prepared for whatever evidence they've uncovered. "Show me." Harrison taps the tablet, bringing up security footage from 2 days earlier. The camera shows the hallway outside Genevieve's rooms, the timestamp corresponding to when Callista was supposedly searching for Theodore's stuffed elephant. The footage clearly shows Callista walking down the hallway, checking various rooms, her expression growing increasingly frustrated. At no point does she enter Genevieve's suite. "As you can see, Ms. Michaels never entered your mother's rooms," Harrison narrates unnecessarily. "But that's not the most relevant footage we found." He swipes to another video, this one from later the same day. The camera shows Genevieve's personal maid, Louise, entering the suite with an armful of freshly laundered linens. Nothing unusual, except for the careful glance she casts down the hallway before slipping inside. "This raised our suspicions," Harrison explains, fast-forwarding. Louise remains in the room for 27 minutes, significantly longer than her usual cleaning routine. When she emerges, the footage shows Louise exiting, her uniform jacket now buttoned where it had been opened before. her posture slightly different. "We interviewed Louise this morning," Harrison continues. "When confronted with this footage, she confessed to taking the necklace. Apparently, she has significant gambling debts. The necklace has been recovered from her brother's apartment in Queens." Timothy stares at the footage, relief warring with anger. Relief that Callista's name is cleared, anger that she was subjected to suspicion and accusation when the evidence exonerating her existed all along. Harrison produces a velvet box, opening it to reveal an elaborate diamond and sapphire necklace, its Art Deco design unmistakably valuable both financially and sentimentally. After the security team departs, Timothy seeks out his mother once more, the velvet box containing the recovered necklace in his hand. He finds her in the morning room, reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviews correspondence. "The investigation is complete," Timothy announces without greeting. "The necklace has been found." Genevieve looks up, her expression carefully arranged to show only mild interest. "Indeed? And where was it discovered?" Timothy places the velvet box on the table before her. "In the apartment of Louise's brother. She confessed to taking it to cover gambling debts." Something flickers across Genevieve's face. Surprise, perhaps embarrassment. But it's quickly masked by practiced dignity. "Well, I'm glad it's been recovered." "That's all you have to say?" Timothy can't keep the edge from his voice. "After accusing Callista of theft? After driving her from our home?" Genevieve removes her reading glasses, meeting her son's gaze directly. "What would you have me say, Timothy? That I was wrong? Very well, I was wrong about the necklace." "About the necklace," Timothy repeats, noting the careful qualification. "But not about Callista?" "I still have my concerns about her place in this household, in Theodore's life." "Mother, listen carefully," Timothy says, his voice level but firm. "Callista is coming home today. She will remain here as my partner, as a maternal figure to Theodore, as part of this family. Your options are to accept this reality and find a way to coexist peacefully, or to remove yourself from our daily lives. The ultimatum lands in the elegant room like a stone breaking still water." Genevieve stares at her son, perhaps truly seeing him for the first time, not as her child to be guided and controlled, but as a man making his own choices, charting his own path. "You love her that much?" she asks finally, genuine curiosity in her tone. "I do," Timothy confirms without hesitation. "Enough to rebuild my life around her, enough to envision a future where she's Theodore's mother, in every way that matters, enough to risk your disapproval." "That's how much?" Genevieve is silent for a long moment, her fingers tracing the outline of the recovered necklace without opening the box. When she speaks again, her voice holds a note Timothy hasn't heard before. Uncertainty, perhaps even vulnerability. "I don't know how to accept her," she admits. "I don't know how to welcome someone new into the place I've always believed should remain Sophia's." The honesty is unexpected, a crack in the formidable facade Genevieve has maintained throughout this conflict. Timothy's anger softens slightly, recognizing the genuine struggle beneath his mother's resistance. "You don't have to forget Sophia," he says more gently. "None of us will. She'll always be Theodore's birth mother, always be my first love. But Callista isn't replacing her. She's creating something new with us, something that honors what came before while allowing us to move forward." "I'm bringing Callista home this afternoon," he says, not a request but a statement of fact. "I hope you'll be here to welcome her properly, to apologize." Without waiting for a response, he leaves, already reaching for his phone to call Callista with the news. The drive to Callista's mother's house feels different this time, purposeful, hopeful, charged with possibility rather than tension. When he arrives, Callista is waiting on the porch swing, as if she sensed his approach. The smile that breaks across her face when she sees him tells Timothy everything he needs to know about their future. that it's worth fighting for, worth any price that must be paid. The necklace was found, he says without preamble as he joins her on the swing. Louise took it. You've been completely cleared. Callista's relief is palpable, her body sagging slightly against his as the tension of the past day releases. Thank goodness, though I never doubted you'd find the truth. The truth was always there, Timothy says, taking her hands in his. Just as I've always known who you are, what you mean to me. As they sit together on the simple porch swing, plans and promises flowing between them, Timothy knows with bone-deep certainty that they've crossed a threshold together. The investigation has revealed more than just the location of a missing necklace. It's illuminated the strength of their bond, the foundation upon which they'll build their shared future. Let's go home, he says, rising and offering his hand. Theodore has been asking for his caca non-stop, and I've missed having you beside me. Callista takes his hand, her smile radiant with hope and determination. Home, she repeats, the word no longer referring to the grand mansion with its marble halls and priceless art, but to the people waiting there, to the life they're creating together from the fragments of what was lost. Chapter 11. Forgiveness. The evening sun casts long shadows across the Payne estate as Timothy's car winds up the driveway, Callista beside him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Despite the vindication of the recovered necklace, despite Timothy's unwavering support, returning to the mansion feels like stepping into uncertain territory. Are you ready? Timothy asks, reaching across to cover her hands with his. Callista nods, drawing strength from his touch. Yes, this is home now. Our home. We can't let fear keep us from living fully in it. Her words warm him, reaffirming what he already knows, that this woman beside him possesses a courage that has nothing to do with physical bravery and everything to do with the resilience of her spirit. She has faced loss that would shatter most people, yet here she stands, open to love, to building something new from the ashes of grief. As they pull up to the entrance, Timothy is surprised to see his mother waiting at the top of the steps, her posture rigid, but her presence itself unexpected. He exchanges a glance with Callista, who squares her shoulders almost imperceptibly, preparing for another confrontation, another test of her worthiness to belong. I didn't expect a welcoming committee, Timothy murmurs as he helps Callista from the car. Neither did I, she replies softly, her eyes never leaving Genevieve's imposing figure. They climb the steps together, Timothy's hand at the small of Callista's back, a tactile reminder that she doesn't face this moment alone. When they reach the top, Genevieve's expression is unreadable, her silver hair gleaming in the golden light of sunset, her elegant attire as impeccable as always. Welcome home, she says, the words formal but devoid of their usual frost. Timothy feels Callista's slight start of surprise. Thank you, Mother. That's unexpectedly gracious of you. Genevieve's gaze shifts to Callista, lingering on her face with an intensity that suggests she's truly seeing her for perhaps the first time. Miss Michaels, Callista, I believe I owe you an apology. The words hang in the air, astonishing in their rarity. In all his life, Timothy can count on one hand the times he's heard his mother apologize to anyone. The necklace has been recovered, Genevieve continues when neither Timothy nor Callista immediately responds. It was taken by Louise, as I'm sure Timothy has informed you. My accusation against you was unfounded and unfair. Callista's expression softens slightly, though wariness remains in her eyes. Thank you for acknowledging that, Mrs. Payne. Genevieve, please. Another surprise, this invitation to familiarity. If you're to be part of this household permanently, as my son insists, formality seems rather pointless. Before Callista can respond, a joyful shriek erupts from inside the mansion, followed by the rapid patter of small feet. Theodore appears in the doorway, his face alight with excitement as he catches sight of Callista. "Ka-ka!" he squeals, launching himself toward her with complete confidence that she'll catch him. "You wanted to speak with me?" Callista asks, remaining standing, not quite ready to settle into what might be another confrontation. Genevieve gestures to the space beside her. "Please sit. This conversation is long overdue." Cautiously, Callista obliges, smoothing her skirt as she takes her place on the bench, leaving appropriate distance between them. She waits, letting the older woman set the pace of this unexpected detente. "I've been reflecting on my behavior toward you," Genevieve begins, her posture still rigid, her gaze fixed on the fountain rather than on Callista. "My actions have been protective, perhaps excessively so." Callista remains silent, sensing this rare moment of vulnerability shouldn't be interrupted. "After Sophia died, I watched Timothy retreat into himself," Genevieve continues, choosing each word carefully. "Theodore was adrift without a mother, and I think I convinced myself that preserving Sophia's memory meant preventing anyone from taking her place." Her hands smooth invisible wrinkles from her skirt, a small, nervous gesture revealing the effort this conversation costs her. "I saw how Theodore responded to you from the beginning," she admits reluctantly. "How easily he accepted your comfort when he rejected everyone else's. It frightened me." "Because you thought I would replace Sophia in his memory," Callista suggests gently. Genevieve's gaze sharpens. "Because I feared what would happen to him, to Timothy, if you entered their lives only to leave again." Loss upon loss. This perspective catches Callista by surprise. The idea that Genevieve's opposition stemmed not just from snobbery or territorial protection, but from genuine fear of further pain for her family. "When the necklace was found with Louise," Genevieve continues, "I was forced to confront my misjudgment. Not just about the theft, but about you. Your absence affected Theodore profoundly. And Timothy... She pauses. "I haven't seen my son fight for anything with such determination since he defied me to marry Sophia." "Why now?" she asks, genuinely curious. "What's changed?" "Watching Theodore these past 2 days without you," Genevieve replies, her voice softening. "His distress was so profound, so genuine. And then there was Timothy, determined to clear your name, to bring you home regardless of the cost to his relationship with me." She pauses, something like respect appearing in her expression. "He loves you enough to risk everything. I had to ask myself why I was fighting so hard against something that brings such joy to the people I care about most." Callista absorbs this, touched by the unexpected vulnerability. "I never wanted to come between you and Timothy, between you and Theodore. There's room for all of us in their lives, in different ways." "I'm beginning to see that." Genevieve reaches into her pocket, withdrawing a small velvet pouch. "I have something for you. A peace offering, if you will." Curious, Callista accepts the pouch, its weight substantial in her palm. Inside, she finds a stunning sapphire and diamond ring, clearly an heirloom piece, its vintage setting speaking of another era entirely. "This was my grandmother's engagement ring," Genevieve explains, watching Callista's reaction carefully. "It's been passed down through the Payne women for generations. I always intended to give it to the woman Timothy would marry." Callista stares at the ring, its significance unmistakable. "I don't understand. We're not engaged." "Not officially, perhaps." A ghost of a smile touches Genevieve's lips. "But I've seen the way my son looks at you, the future he's planning in his mind. It's only a matter of time. And you're giving me your blessing." Callista can hardly believe the conversation has taken this turn after months of subtle hostility, of being made to feel like an intruder in the Payne household. "I'm acknowledging reality," Genevieve corrects, though her tone lacks its usual sharpness, "and choosing to embrace it rather than fight against it." Life is too short for endless conflict, as I'm sure you know better than most. Callista closes her hand around the ring, emotion swelling in her throat. Not just for the acceptance the gesture represents, but for the bridge it builds between her past and her potential future. A symbol of continuity, of family extending beyond blood to choice, to love. I don't know what to say, she admits, her voice thick with unshed tears. You don't need to say anything. Genevieve rises, her composure returning like a familiar cloak. Just promise me one thing. What's that? That you'll continue to make Theodore and Timothy as happy as they've been since you entered their lives. That you'll honor the legacy you're stepping into, not just Sophia's memory, but the Payne family history that will become part of your story now too. The request is earnest, stripped of the manipulation that has characterized so many of their previous interactions. Callista stands as well, facing this woman who has been her most formidable opponent, and finding, for the first time, common ground in their shared love for Theodore and Timothy. I promise, she says simply, meaning it with every fiber of her being. Genevieve nods once, satisfaction settling across her features. Then welcome to the family, Callista Michaels, officially. As they walk back toward the house, side by side, not quite friends but no longer adversaries, Callista feels something shift within her, a final piece of the puzzle falling into place, completing the picture of the life she's rebuilding from tragedy's ashes. Timothy is waiting in the library, pretending to read, but obviously anxious about the outcome of their private conversation. His expression when they enter together, apparently at peace, is a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Everything all right?" he asks, rising to meet them, his gaze moving between the two women in his life with cautious hope. "Better than all right," Callista replies, a genuine smile lighting her face as she opens her palm to reveal the ring Genevieve has given her. Timothy's eyes widen, recognition immediate. "Mother, that's grandmother's ring." "Yes," Genevieve confirms simply. "I thought it was time for it to find its way to the next generation." The significance isn't lost on Timothy, whose gaze snaps to his mother's face with naked surprise. "Does this mean—" "It means," Genevieve interrupts with a hint of her usual crispness, "that I've been a stubborn old woman who nearly cost her son his happiness because of fear and misplaced loyalty to ghosts. It means I'm choosing to embrace the future rather than cling to the past. It means, Timothy, that you have my blessing, not that you need it." The admission leaves Timothy momentarily speechless, his composure slipping to reveal genuine emotion. When he finally finds his voice, it carries a depth of feeling rarely displayed in this household of careful restraint. "Thank you, Mother. That means more than you know." Genevieve acknowledges this with a slight nod, her expression softening briefly before she straightens, practical as always. "Now, I believe I'll retire for the evening. It's been an eventful day." As she leaves, the click of her heels against the hardwood receding into silence, Timothy turns to Callista with wonder in his eyes. "What did you say to her?" "I've never seen my mother change her mind about anything, let alone something she's been so adamantly against." Callista shakes her head, still processing the conversation herself. "I think it was more what she saw than what I said. Theodore's distress without me, your determination to clear my name regardless of the cost. Sometimes the most powerful arguments aren't spoken at all." Timothy draws her into his arms, his embrace communicating everything words cannot. Relief, gratitude, love so profound it transcends the tragedies that brought them together. They stand like that for a long moment, the library's quiet enveloping them like a cocoon. The scent of old books and polished wood, a fitting backdrop to this new chapter in their shared story. "Forgiveness is a gift," Callista murmurs against his chest, thinking not just of Genevieve but of the long journey she's traveled since James's death, since losing their baby. for the one who gives it as much as the one who receives it. Timothy pulls back slightly to look into her eyes, his expression serious. Is that what you've done? Forgiven my mother for how she's treated you all these months? Callista considers this, wanting her answer to be honest rather than simply reassuring. I'm working on it, she admits. Just as I'm working on forgiving myself for finding happiness again after James, for loving Theodore as if he were my own, for building a new life when sometimes it still feels like a betrayal of what I lost. It's not a betrayal, Timothy says fiercely, cupping her face in his hands. Finding joy again doesn't diminish what came before. It honors it, proves that love is stronger than grief, that life continues despite devastating loss. His words echo what her heart has been slowly accepting over these months in the Payne household, that loving again isn't a betrayal, but a testament to the human spirit's capacity for renewal, for hope that persists despite everything. I know, she whispers, covering his hands with her own. I'm learning that every day with you and Theodore. They sit together on the leather sofa, Callista nestled against Timothy's side. The ring Genevieve gave her balanced on her palm between them, a tangible symbol of acceptance, of family expanding to include her not as an outsider but as an essential part of its future. She seems to think this will be on my finger soon, Callista remarks, watching the sapphires catch the light from the reading lamp. Timothy's arm tightens around her shoulders. My mother has always been unnervingly perceptive about some things. The implication sends a thrill through Callista, not fear or hesitation, but anticipation, a recognition that the path they've been traveling together has always been leading to this juncture, this choice to formally unite their lives. Is that your roundabout way of proposing, Timothy Payne? She teases gently, though her heart races at the possibility. He laughs, the sound warm and genuine. No, when I propose, you'll know it. It will be worthy of the extraordinary woman you are, of everything you've come to mean to me and Theodore. The promise hangs between them, not pressuring but comforting, a future glimpsed, a destination named. For tonight it's enough to sit in this peaceful moment, the worst of the storms behind them, the horizon clearing before them. As they sit in companionable silence, Callista reflects on the journey that brought her here. From the depths of loss to this unexpected sanctuary, from broken grief to healing love. The path hasn't been easy or straightforward, has been marked by missteps and obstacles, by Genevieve's resistance and her own lingering guilt. But perhaps that's the nature of forgiveness, of healing, not a single moment of transformation, but a series of small steps, of choices made daily to move forward rather than remain trapped in past pain. Tonight represents one such step, significant in its way, but part of a longer journey still unfolding. We should check on Theodore, she says eventually, reluctant to break the peaceful moment, but drawn as always to the child who has become the center of her world. They find him sleeping peacefully, his stuffed elephant clutched tightly in one arm, his expression serene now that his beloved Caw-Caw has returned. Standing together in the doorway of the nursery, Timothy's arm around her waist, Callista feels a sense of rightness, of belonging that once seemed impossible in the wake of her losses. This is family, she realizes, not perfect or unmarred by past pain, but real and present and worth fighting for. With Timothy, with Theodore, even with the formidable Genevieve Payne, she has found her way back to life, back to love, back to a future worth embracing with her whole heart. As they close the nursery door softly behind them, Timothy presses a gentle kiss to her temple. "Welcome home, Callista," he whispers, the words carrying all the meaning in the world. For good this time. And in her heart, Callista knows it's true. She is home, not just in this mansion with its grand rooms and elegant furnishings, but in the love that surrounds her, in the family that has claimed her as their own. Home at last, after a journey through the deepest valleys of grief, to this unexpected mountaintop of joy rediscovered. Temple, welcome home, Callista, he whispers, the words carrying all the meaning in the world, for good this time. And in her heart, Callista knows it's true. She is home, not just in this mansion with its grand rooms and elegant furnishings, but in the love that surrounds her, in the family that has claimed her as their own. Home, at last, after a journey through the deepest valleys of grief, to this unexpected mountaintop of joy rediscovered. Chapter 12. Hearts Unbroken. The morning light filters through the curtains as Callista stands in Theodore's nursery, watching him sleep peacefully in his crib. His tiny chest rises and falls with each breath, unaware of the emotional journey that has brought them all to this moment. She reaches down to stroke his soft cheek, her heart overflowing with a love she never thought she'd feel again after losing her own child. Timothy appears in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the golden morning light. His eyes hold a quiet certainty, a peace that has gradually replaced the haunted look he carried for so long after Sophia's death. He looks so peaceful, Timothy whispers, stepping beside her. Children always do, Callista replies softly. They forgive so easily, love so completely. They stand in silence, both aware that this moment marks a turning point. In the 3 months since Genevieve's unexpected acceptance, their relationship has deepened into something neither could have imagined that rainy day in the cemetery. The ring Genevieve gifted still rests in Callista's jewelry box, a promise of future possibilities rather than an immediate demand. Today, however, feels different. Something in the air, in Timothy's demeanor, suggests change approaching. I've been thinking, Timothy says, his voice barely audible to avoid waking Theodore, about what you said about forgiveness being a gift for the giver as much as the receiver. Callista turns to him, curious. And I realize I needed to forgive myself, he admits, for surviving when Sophia didn't, for not being able to hold Theodore at first, for finding happiness again when I'd sworn I never would. The confession touches something deep within Callista, the same journey she's been traveling, learning to allow joy back into her life without feeling it betrays those she lost. And have you, she asks, forgiven yourself? Timothy takes her hands in his expression solemn yet radiant with certainty. Yes, which is why I need to ask you something. He reaches into his pocket, withdrawing not Genevieve's heirloom ring, but a different one entirely. A simple, elegant solitaire diamond, set in platinum, modern and timeless simultaneously. I had this made for you, he explains, his voice gaining strength with each word, because while I honor the past, mine and yours, what we're building is something new, something that deserves its own beginning. Callista's breath catches as Timothy drops to one knee, still holding her hand. I never thought I'd love again after Sophia, he says, his voice steady with conviction. I thought that part of me died with her. But you showed me that the heart doesn't run out of space for love. It expands. Theodore stirs in his crib, as if sensing the significance of the moment unfolding beside him. You came into our lives when we were drowning in grief, and you taught us how to swim again, Timothy continues. Will you make this family complete? Will you marry me, Callista? Tears stream freely down her face now, joy and gratitude intermingling. Yes, she whispers, 1,000 times yes. As he slides the ring onto her finger, Theodore's eyes open, his gaze fixing on them with that uncanny awareness children sometimes possess. He smiles, reaching his arms up toward them both. Timothy lifts his son, bringing him into their embrace. The three of them stand together, not a replacement for what was lost, but something new and beautiful built from grief's ashes. This is what healing looks like, Callista says, her voice vibrating with emotion. not forgetting the past, but building something beautiful from its pieces. In this perfect morning moment, surrounded by love she never expected to find again, Callista understands the truth that has been slowly revealing itself through all the pain and joy of the past year. Hearts are not broken beyond repair. They crack, they shatter, they seem destroyed beyond recognition. But they also heal, expand, and find new ways to love that honor rather than erase what came before. "I love you," Timothy whispers, his forehead resting against hers, Theodore secure between them. "Both of you, more than I have words to express." "And we love you," Callista replies, the simple truth more powerful than any elaborate declaration. Outside their window, the morning sun rises higher, warming the world with its gentle light. Inside, a family stands united, forged through tragedy, strengthened by challenges, bound together not by blood but by choice, by love that refused to be diminished by loss. And in that embrace, in that promise of future joy, the tides of their hearts finally come to rest on the shores of peace long sought, of happiness rediscovered, of love that proves more enduring than even the deepest grief.